What is going on, everyone out there? I hope all is well. My name is Brandon Spencer, and I want to thank you for joining me at this Freedom Under Natural Law 2 conference. I hope you've been having a wonderful experience, and I hope your day has been going well. Before I jump into my presentation, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank all the individuals out there who made this possible. I want to thank all the supporters. I want to thank all the hosts. I want to thank anyone who helped organize, and even if you help spread this information as far as to getting this out into the public consciousness. I want to thank every single one of you because that's what it's all about. It's about unity and right action and trying to create a world based in freedom and all of these topics that we say that we want. But before I jump into my presentation, I want to first say that it is impossible to get all of this information in just 1 hour or so. I always advocate that people do their own research on these topics. And if you want to dive deeper, it is only a matter of your own willpower. And then the second caveat is the emotional responses, the emotional babies. You can't judge information from an emotional standpoint. So if you hear something that may make you feel uncomfortable, that makes you feel unpleasant, that makes you feel uneasy, that is 100% fine. That's a part of being human. Don't try to judge this information based on how it makes you feel. So now that that is out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. My presentation is titled The Mystery of the Mind, Heart, and Hands. So let's start this off with a powerful, powerful quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. The reason why the world lacks unity and lies broken and in heaps is because man is disunited with himself. The reason why the world lacks unity and lies broken and in heaps is because man is disunited with himself. Powerful, powerful quote. And that's what we are here to discuss is about unity. Is about coming together, about a bridge, building a community. But where does that unity have to take place first? Where does that bridge, that gap, that community have to take place first? It must first take place internally. It has to take place internally first. And we've heard about this in a lot of spiritual groups, the mind, body, spirit connection. Well, this is true. This is how we as individuals, we as conscious beings, beings that express consciousness, this is how we express ourselves. This is how we express ourselves to others. This is how we let, ourselves be known. This is how we express ourselves to reality with our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. These are the threefold manifestations of consciousness. Thoughts being the generator of reality. It has been said that the universe, the all, the isness is a mental construct, as though we live in the mind of God, because everything is energy, everything is consciousness. The thoughts are where we create, are supposed to create the generator. And then we have our emotions, which gives us life, which gives us experience, which gives us that fulfillment. And then you have the child being birthed. You have the action, the voice, that which we do, our deeds, our behaviors. This was always expressed as a trinity in all of the traditions, or, rather it be religious traditions, or, in the mythological stories, even in the secret societies, you always see a trinity, the three in one. This three in one, this threefold aspect, or this threefold nature in one, and even a threefold principle in one. Well, let's look up the etymology of the word Trinity. Trinity, from Latin trinus, threefold, triple, or three in one. And we saw a lot of this being displayed in ancient civilizations, in ancient cultures, in their, slash religious slash cult slash mythological, institutions in the ancient early Egyptian era. You had the three phases of the sun. Their trinity was based on the three phases of the sun. You had the sun at its birth, the sun at dawn, which was Capri or Kepera. Then you had Ra being the second aspect of the sun at its highest peak at noontime. And then you had the third aspect, Hanum or Atum, which was the sun when it was setting. This was the sun in its third stage, going to fight the ignorance, fight the darkness at night. You see this threefold aspect in one. And then this was later portrayed in the Egyptian traditions with Osiris, Isis, and Horus. And then this was also portrayed in the Mesopotamian traditions in the earlier stages. You had Utu or Shamash, which was the main solar deity. And then you had Sin, which was always a representation of the moon or the emotional characteristics. The second, deity was always like the counterpart or the second in command. And then you had the storm god, Adad or Baal, who was the god of action, which was the god of storm, because man always relied on agriculture and the raining of the crops in order for them to survive. So the third deity was always about action, which was always the savior deity. And then you have the classical Greek, in the classical Greek traditions, Zeus, Athena, and Apollo. Again, you see Apollo being savior figure, the sun figure, the rising and rebirth, Zeus being the main deity in that pantheon. And then we also saw it in the Babylonian traditions, Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. Well, again, Tammuz being the death and rebirth. And then you had the Eleusinian or the Eleusinian mysteries. This was some of the most occult traditions. But again, we see this threefold nature: Demeter, goddess of agriculture, and then Persephone, her daughter, and then Triptolemus, which was the individual who brought on the sowing of seeds, the agriculture, teaching the kings about, how to plant seeds, crops, the life and death cycle of rebirth. Again, we've seen these trinities play out through history so many times. You can pick your flavor. And we also see these trinities are the 3-in-1 aspects when it comes to the brain makeup. In the triune brain, we have the R complex, we have the limbic system, and the neocortex. The R complex being the oldest part of our makeup, the whole survival state. This is the part that says, am I safe? Then you have the limbic system, which is the mammalian emotional part, the part where our care, emotions are going to be stored at. How memory associates the memory with experience and attaches that to emotion, stores that into long-term memory. This is the part that says, am I loved? Then you have the higher regions, the neocortical area, the neocortex, the neural regions, the executive part. This is where higher level intelligence occurs, where morality, decision making, logic, reasoning, and the creativity. This is the part that says, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? Because there's always something to be learned. And this is the threefold aspect to our brain. And then you have the trivium, which was about a methodological discovery of truth, of discernment, of taking in information to be filtered. You have the grammar and knowledge aspect, the data information. You're gathering the data from a wide variety of sources, and you're priming that data to be filtered. You ask yourself all these questions to move on to that logic and understanding. This is the filtration process. This is the internal process. This is where you start to ask the why, to gain some power. And then you always have that threefold outward manifestation in the rhetoric, the wisdom. But the key here is the first process is always the mind. The mind is always the generator, the origin of creativity, of thought. So let's look up the mind and thought. This is something that people seem to say they know about, but do they ever really exercise thought? Do they ever really dive into the deepness of the mind? Let's look at what thought is: the process of thinking, form created within the mind, and not, or rather not, the forms perceived through the five senses, because forms perceived through the five senses are not really much thought. It's just stimulus response. Something in your environment is sending you information and you're reacting to the information. True thought means creativity. True thought means you are the generator of what you are thinking. Our way of thinking is what makes us who we are. Our way of thinking is what separates us from the lower level animal kingdoms, because we have holistic intelligence. We are capable of thinking way much more deeper, greater than what we are capable of. There's no limit on how much we can think. It is infinite. It's just a matter of our mindsets. There's no other animal on this planet that is capable of thinking to the degree as we are. Our thoughts are what shape reality. If you haven't figured that out by now, our thoughts, our information, our belief system structure our reality. Now, social engineers know that, because our thoughts are going to create belief systems. Our belief systems are going to be what we structure our world off of. So this is about understanding that we have holistic intelligence. We have animalistic component to us, but we also have greater capacities with our neocortex, greater thinking, judgment, discernment, and morality. Morality. That's what's key here, is we are capable of understanding right and wrong. So we're talking about the expansion of thought, diving deeper into the mind. What was one topic that always helped expand thought within the mind of men? One topic of study. Was it not philosophy? Nowadays seems to be considered a dead topic, but philosophy was one topic that always helped expand thought. So let's look up what the etymology of the word philosophy means. It's usually associated with knowledge, learning, but the true definition is the love of wisdom. Greek philos, love, and Sophia, wisdom. So the love of wisdom. And I know that usually people equate wisdom to knowledge, but in actuality, wisdom is action. It is that last process in the trivium phase. Wisdom, you putting back out into creation what you have come to understand. And that's what philosophy was all about, is you can't possibly put that back out into the world if you don't understand it. So you have to take it into the mind first, into that mental cognition first. Philosophy helped explore ways of thinking about certain subjects, such as morality, ethics, thought, purpose, life, existence, time, meaning, and value. I mean, just imagine the importance of this if people in today's day and age started to question these things. You started to think and question, morality. You started to think and question these things as far as ethics, these deeper topics, thought, exploring the mind, purpose. Everyone's so stuck in their 9-to-5 job these days. They don't really equate life to purpose, or doing that which gives you fulfillment, doing that which gives you meaning. What about existence? We're all just here, trying to get the cheese in the rat wheel. What about existence? Being in the present day now, knowing what you stand for, having principles, having meaning. And then time. What are we spending our time on? Are we spending our time on useless things that aren't going to elevate human consciousness, that aren't going to get us to where we say we want to go? And then meaning. true meaning, and then value. What is it worth? What is worthy to you? What is worthy to you? These are all topics that the individual has to ask themselves. No one else can ask these questions for you. You have to ask yourself these questions. But if you don't ask yourself these questions, then how can you ever go into manifestation to ever get the answer to these questions? Philosophy was once a topic of liberation, freedom, and individuality. Individuality. And in this collectivist culture that we live in, individuality was so important because individuality was about expression and about creativity. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Plato. True wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. Socrates. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Aristotle. What happened to these great minds? What happened to these great thinkers? I mean, these are such profound quotes that most people don't even dare bother ask themselves today. What happened to this mindset? What happened? You have to ask yourself, what happened? Why is it that philosophy is considered to be a dead subject? Why is it that people don't want to dive into these philosophical principles? Well, you have to understand what a proxy is. A proxy, an imitation, a husk, a real thing, a statue. They always give you an imitation to take away from the real thing. They always want you worried about the statue, the fakeness. And the proxies that they give us are misosophy. Misosophy, prefix miso, hatred or disgust, and then the suffix Sophie from Sophia. So you have the hatred of wisdom, the hatred of knowledge. And we see this every day, living in a culture that shuns knowledge. People would rather stay ignorant, stay retarded, than to go read a book, spend time trying to understand these deeper concepts. A hatred of wisdom, a hatred of knowledge. People look at knowledge in today's day and age as something that is dangerous and evil. Why do I need to know this? Because deep down at the root, they psychologically understand with knowledge comes responsibility. And people don't want to be responsible for their actions. They sure hell don't want to be responsible for that which they know, which is why they want to stay in this mindset of ignorance. They want to stay attached to these proxies. They don't want to let go because their ego has become attached to these things. And you got other poisonous ideologies that are infested within our minds, like solipsism. The etymology of solipsism, solus, alone. And ipse, the self. So a solipsist is one who says that their own self or oneself is the only thing that exists, meaning anything outside of yourself is not real. Solipsists will also say that truth can never really be fully known. And if it could, it can never really be fully, orchestrated in a way that other people can understand it. So again, a very egoistic, dangerous mindset of thinking, because at the end of the day, solipsism is just another contradictory, because you're saying that, hey, nothing outside of myself can exist. Okay, well then you can never really know that you're going to fucking fall off that cliff. So why don't you go jump off that cliff, hey, you're a solipsist. So I'm not even real. So I can pull out whatever weapon and just rob you. But hey, I'm not real. So it's not really taking place. Like you see the internal contradictions and how disillusioned these things sound once you bring it to a higher level of intelligence and understanding. Hey, I'm not real. The only thing that is real in this universe is you. Yeah, good luck with that. It's like saying you are the creator of all things, because that's what solipsism is saying, that you are God. And then, of course, we have moral relativism. Morality is subjective and changeable. This is what is spewed in almost all aspects of society. But you see, they have to get it into the mental programming first. They have to get into your mindset, because our minds are going to create behaviors. Our minds are going to create actions. Our minds and how we think are going to create deeds and manifestations. So they control the root level. They control the base level, and anything that'll spring out of that base level will automatically be controlled by law. So trying to build on any one of these ideologies is impossible, because you are building upon a lie. And then we all know what it means to try to build something on a shaky foundation. It's not going to have any structure. It's not going to have any foundation. It's not going to have any principle. So you can't build anything that is based on the bullshit lie. It is impossible. Impossible. And this is how it happens, man. Garbage into the mind is going to create garbage out in action. Indoctrination. They get them when they are young. They get them when they are young. This is why you have to understand the psychology. You have to understand the developmental processes for an individual. They get to us when we are extremely young, and they indoctrinate us and they program us with the information that they want us to have, and not the information that is beneficial toward human consciousness, not beneficial toward human evolution, not information that is beneficial toward the understanding of natural law, of what real freedom is. It's no different than when the slave masters used to indoctrinate the kids that were on the slave plantations from back in the day. It works the same way. But let's take a look at the second aspect in this Trinity, the heart and care. So, the heart, we're talking about soul, emotion, energy, will, spirit, desire. But most of all, what is always left out is care. Care is the essential ingredient here, because we always like to equate the emotions with the heart, and that's rightfully so. But care, what are you spending your time on? What are you spending your attention on? What are you focused on? Because that's going to be the driving force in manifestation as far as willpower. So feelings give emotions, feelings give experience, but also feelings give connection. They give expression, and they give life. We say, or the reason why I say that feelings give connection, because when you think about a memory, when you think about an experience, isn't there usually associated an emotion that is attached to that experience? So that's the connection right there. Is our feelings grant connection with certain experiences. So we have to learn to grasp on to those feelings and connections, because we can relive those experiences at any time we want. So the heart is the bridge between our minds and our hands being the action. That's why the heart is the middle point to balance, the balancing factor. It is the balancing factor of the three, the bridge of the three, because, our thinking can get out of control. We can start thinking all kinds of immoral, violent, egoic things, just like our actions. Our actions can get way out of control. We can start building all kinds of things that that aren't beneficial to consciousness. Well, the heart, the moral compass, was supposed to be the balancing factor, which even those two structures out. The moral compass is what gives us direction, just like a regular compass. You got north, east, west, south, four directions. It's supposed to give us guidance, supposed to give us understanding, supposed to give us judgment, clarity. And I say judgment because if you know something is morally wrong, then you should use discernment not to enact it into manifestation. Here is the driving force and motivator for willpower. This is the most, this is the part most never really accessed because the heart is still silent. The care is still dead. They don't want to elevate themselves. They don't want to push themselves into that caring mentality. We still see this today. Oh, we should just go over and just wipe out this one group of people. No, these are individuals that have potential. We've got to learn to care because without care, there is no unity. There is no coming together. There is no communication. There is no group. There is no foundation. Because with care, you'll always turn your back. You'll always be willing to close your doors to other people and close your doors to information. We say care, not just talking about people, but what about the care for truth? How about that? Most people don't even have that care. They don't even care for the truth, don't even care, have enough self-respect for them to take in true information, true, valuable, golden information that can help raise their consciousness. And then two, we all know that being stuck in our emotional state can lead to bad decision making. So again, everything is about balance. It's not being so overly stuck and aggressive in your emotions because then there's no room for logic expansion. True religion, true religion. Now I know this is one that's probably going to, send some chills up people's spines, but you have to understand what the word religion means at its etymological standpoint. Religion, from the Latin word religo, relegare, to bind, to tie, to bind fast, to wrap, bandage, to ally. So you have to look at religion as twofold. So we take everything that we've seen from reality as far as the cultural, religions, Christianity, Judaism, you got Muslim and all the other nonsense that it is out there. And we see all the negativity that it is brought about. We see all the death. We see all the violence, all the moral decay, all the pedophilia, all the wars, all the destruction that has come out of religion. And unfortunately, that is the negative connotation to bind one's consciousness from movement, from elevation. That's what would be the proper connotation for those, religions. And I would even go any further to say that any ideology that holds, stops, thwarts, or bind man's progression in consciousness from moving forward or from elevating is a religion. So you can throw any ideology into this negative understanding to bind one's consciousness from moving forth. So anything that's going to bind our consciousness, lower our consciousness, is a religion. So that's the negative connotation of religion. But then you also have its positive connotation. And just like in the tarot card, we see the goddess. You can call it Mayat. You can call it Semiramis. You can call it Ishtar. You can call it Hathor or Isis. But what it represents is truth. The religion bound to truth because you having that process with the truth, you having that connection to the truth, that unity to the truth. You are bound to the truth. The truth is your ally. You are wrapped in the truth. It should be what true religion is. Because the truth is what's going to give you clarity. Having that connection is going to be the strongest possible connection you can have in this physical reality. I mean, can you think of another connection that would be stronger than a connection with the truth? So, in this connection, you are the bridge. You can be that vessel. You can walk hand in hand alongside her. True religion, because you are bound back to that which you was lost to. And since man consciousness has fallen so low and we become so lost, we do need to be bound back to something, bound back to principles, bound back to truth, bound back to natural law, bound back to internal unity, internal harmonization, our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions all being in sync, all being bound back together, having integrity, wholeness, completeness. We can't get there without a relationship with the truth. We can't get there without a connection to the truth. Two quotes. Honesty is more than not lying. It is truth telling, truth speaking, truth living, and truth loving. James E. Faust. One first, one must first care for truth, seek truth, embody the truth, and speak, share the truth. Chris Nelson. Because again, that's what it's all about, is caring for the truth. Caring for the truth. How many people are willing to make that sacrifice? How many people? Are you willing to shift your whole time, your whole way of life, your whole way of being, your consciousness? Are you willing to shift that for the truth? Are you willing to make that sacrifice? Are you willing to spend your time, your attention, your willpower for her, for the truth? Most people aren't. And that's why we are stuck in this situation. One must first care for truth, seek truth, embody the truth, means you harmonize with the truth. You become one with her. You unify with the truth. The whole thing is about unity. And then once you become unified, you speak the truth. And that's what too many people are not doing. They may have some care for the truth. They may embody some of the truth, but they show hell aren't willing to speak the truth. They aren't willing to use their voices to make that sacrifice. Because they are afraid of the physical sacrifice. They're still stuck in that cowardly mindset. So, what is truth? You know, this is a word that gets thrown around a lot. You know, but you ask people to define their words, and usually they can't. So let's look at the etymology of what truth is. Proto-Germanic, true whiz or tree whiz or tree was. I think that's how you pronounce that. Root word, Proto-Indo-European, deru, which means firm, solid, faithful, steadfast. And then this was also associated with wood or, trees. And the reason for that is because I would say that they always saw truth as an immutable force. And one thing that, for ancient man would see as immutable as an immutable force was nature. And that was always representative of a tree. And then tree worship and nature worship was something that was always big for ancient man. So I can see the correlation, with the two. So events, actions, and behaviors that have occurred or are occurring now, that which is, if it has not happened in the past, if it is not occurring now, it is not true. So we have to have a connection, a knowledge of information of events that have happened in the past and are happening now. That's what we need to have a connection with, because when we have that connection, we have a connection of the objective reality that we all share and that we all are experiencing and creating. So you have the microcosm having a connection with the macrocosm. That's what harmony is. That's what unity is. That's what we are here to achieve. And like I said earlier, is there a stronger foundation than the truth? Is there a stronger connection than the connection with the truth? I mean, just think about that. Can we have a more a beneficial foundation than the truth? We say a person is dead when they have no pulse, no feeling. Can a person be soulless? Can the person be spiritless? And I would say yes. I would say that's what we are experiencing now. We have too many people who are just walking around emotionless, not caring, not willing to exert their willpower. And what do they say to you? I don't care. The whole I don't care crowd. Man, you want to talk about words that have always led to evil manifesting? Because when you say I don't care, then the next thing are going to be order followers coming in to exert their coercive willpower on you. I don't care. That's the three words that always lead to tyranny. I don't care. So let's look at some of the proxies. Let's look at some of the imitations. Let's look at some of these structures that are holding people's emotional state, that are, holding back that heart energy. And of course, you have the dogmatic religions. So let's look up what the etymology of the word dogma means. An authoritative belief or statement or opinion regarded as true. Keyword regarded as true, regardless of evidence to support it. That which one thinks is true. Man, you can take any other flavors of dogma that we've seen, definitely in the past 2 years, but throughout man's existence, and create a whole presentation on that. So you have the whole dogmatic religious way of thinking, which was just nothing more than collectivism / cult mentality. But one thing that all the religionists have in common is they are 100% fine with their God or their deity murdering, wiping out, eradicating all non-believers. Again, where's the care? You're talking about just taking out thousands of people, no conscience. I've actually had a religious person tell me, and I'm like, well, what does your supposedly book say about all the people who are non-believers? And she looked at me in my eyes and just said it with no kind of emotions. Oh, they'll all be taken out. And I'm like, how can you just say that so easily? Like with no care in the world, like no kind of emotional reaction, just like a psychopath. Oh, they'll all be taken out. And I'm like, you're fine with that? You're okay with that? And she's like, yeah, that's God's plan. I'm like, you want to talk about psychopathic? How can you just be okay with a large amount of people just being wiped out? I mean, one person alone is already bad enough. But you see, that's the dogmatic cult mentality that they get people to subscribe into, to spin their emotions, to spin their rationality, because they've been indoctrinated with the cult think. And just like any other cult mentality, they'll sit there and partake in whatever the cult is doing. It can be irrational, it can be immoral, it can be very violent, it can be something that they themselves on an individual basis say they won't partake in, but because it's happening in the group dynamic, they will suspend all capabilities of thought and free will to partake in the group activity. And that's what we've seen play out in the past 2 years. That one thinks is true. Beliefs and knowledge are not the same thing. You can believe anything that you want. And that's the problem with dogma. It's all based on belief. And then we got apathy. French has derivation. Apathy. Latin. Apathia. The lack of care. Freedom from emotion, which I don't know why you would want to have that. Lack of motivation or the lack of emotion. And this gets into the I don't care crowd. You know, you try to bring people information, you try to bring people this knowledge, and they're just sitting back. You know, what does it have to do with me? You know, it's like if you're a human being, then you should care about human freedom. You should care that, you know, that slavery is alive and well in 2022, unfortunately. You would think that these would be topics that would have people literally riled up and not a football game. You know, people get more riled up about who lost the football game than they do about the loss of freedom, about their kids and grandkids not having any freedom because the government's become so tyrannical and authoritarianism and collectivism mindset is all over the place. Apathy is what creates unconscious creation because you're trying to build something, you're trying to construct something, and there's no emotion in it. True creativity involves logic and emotion. The two can't be left out. And we're always creating here. We are always building something. We're always constructing something. We're either going to do it consciously or unconsciously. It comes down to us. It comes down to choice. It comes down to free will choice. David Light, quote, dogmatic religion has been used to a fantastic effort over thousands of years to fuel and exploit emotions like fear and guilt and the feeling of being unworthy. This has encouraged people to hand over their right to think and feel over to a Bible and a priest because they have not had the confidence of self-belief to realize that they have a right and an infinite gift to make their own decisions. Another one of the main proxies is money. From Latin, moneta. That's where the word money comes from. Juno moneta, or manari, mint, coin money, aneo, to warn, to advise. And Juno moneta, she was actually part of the Capitoline Hill Trinity, which was Jupiter, Juno moneta, and Minerva, goddess of wisdom. And Juno moneta, she was the one who advised, who looked over the overseer of the money. Because when you are the overseer of something, you can control it. You can stir it in whatever direction that you want. That's why the money has always been tied to our emotional characteristics. That's why money invokes an emotional characteristic within people. It has a talismanic effect. You know, and that's why you can add money to the equation and people will start to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And we've seen this in videos. Like you'll ask people, oh, would you do something? And they'll say no. Well, then you add enough money to it and then people will lose all sight of morality. People will lose all sight of logic, conscious, her thought process. Oh, because you're throwing money in it? Oh, I'll do it. Because this is what people worship. And this is one of the main beliefs that have been retarded in human consciousness since day one. People think if I just hit that magic number or if I get enough zeros in my bank account, it's somehow going to solve all of my problems. Well, you're wrong, because your problems are internally. Money is an external factor. You can't eat it. Can't do shit with it. It's an illusion. It's not real. What's the difference between a $100 bill and a $1 bill? There ain't no difference. Just your belief that one's worth more than the other. It all starts with care for truth. I'm afraid to see the truth of what's taking place. The whole I don't want to see crowd, or I don't want to know. Vision was always associated with knowledge, the light. You can't see things in the dark. You can't see things in ignorance. The people who don't want to look at the information don't even want to take it in. They'd rather stay ignorant. You have the second group of people. I'm afraid to listen to the truth of what's going on. You try to bring them the information and they don't want to hear it because it'll create an emotional response. It means they may have to do something. It means they may have to change. So they'll just continue to hold their hands over their ears and say, nope, 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 I don't hear it. I don't hear it. If I don't hear it, that means I'm not responsible. And then you have the last group. I'm afraid to speak. Their lips are sealed. I'm afraid to speak the truth about what's going on. I don't want to take any action. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to use their voice. They don't want to be a vessel for the truth. That means they may have to get their hands dirty. That means they may get a target on their back. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil is the main reason why evil still exists. Our hands in action, this is something that people still take for granted. This is something that people don't quite grasp the reality on having these. We say, oh, I'm gonna put my hands on you. Yeah, there's certain consequences for having them hands, man. There are consequences for having hands. I mean, not many other life forms have these right here. So when you have these, there are certain responsibilities that come along with this. So let's look up what the word hand means. It actually has uncertain origin. It is conjectured to be Proto-Germanic from the word handas, to grasp, to control, power, to reach, to obtain possession. Because when you look at this, yes, this is what grants us power along with this, because we are able to pick up things. It's like in Stanley Kubrick's movie, A Space Odyssey. In the first stage of the film, you see the power of the hands. When you see the monkey or the monkey-like, creatures, one of them touches the square-like block. I forgot what it's actually called, but it grants him that intellectual understanding. So what does he do in the next scene? He picks up a bone and beats the fuck out of the other, rival monkey. Once again, consequence, understanding. With these, we have more capacity, we have more capability. Therefore, the ramifications that, for us are more severe compared to the animal kingdom. And yes, people will make the argument that there are certain creatures in the animal kingdom that have hands. Yes, but they don't have the neocortex like we do. So again, it is our thinking and it is the hands that equate to the responses and the consequences that are manifested in reality as far as humans. Our hands are how we manifest our thoughts and creation. Our hands are how we help build reality. Hell, without these, there wouldn't be much building. Our actions are what are determined under natural law. And just like what the ka was in the Egyptian traditions, it was a representation of the soul, the spirit. Well, the hands, bringing in deeds and actions and manifestation, all associated with the spirit and the soul, because our hands are going to be the overall effect that's going to be left for other people to experience. So if we are out there building an immoral world, if we're out there using violence, if we are out there using theft, even long after we are gone, those effects are still going to be there for other people to experience. The sins of the father are usually experienced, for the son. Yes, because the effects from manifestation that we create are always lingering. They're always there, even long after we are gone. Sometimes maybe too long. But this is all about the hands in action. What are we creating? What kind of world are we creating? What kind of deeds? What about behavior? Are the hands in action? Is it falling up under right action? The whole upright hands, being upright, being moral, being closer to the sun, having integrity, being just. Wisdom brings us wisdom brings us nearer to life and closer to the heart of the world than foolish man can ever be. Bookishness may lead to loneliness, and scholarship may end in a battle of beliefs. But the wise one gazing off into space sees no emptiness, but a space full of life, truth, and law. And he ain't talking about man's law. He's talking about natural universal law. And that is Manly P. Hall. Richard W. Wetherill. Morality consists of recognizing and doing what is right, and recognizing and refusing to do what is wrong. Yes, because once again, this is about free will. We have the free will choice to choose, but based on that which we choose, based on that which we select, based on that which we have chosen in our deeds and actions and manifestation, that's going to create a response from manifestation. And we're going to get that response back in manifestation. So ultimately, we are the causers of our own experience. That's what natural law is supposed to help you understand. That's hopefully what the one great work is there to help you, understand. We are the ones causing this, but are we causing right action or are we causing chaos? So we see how we always take these thoughts and ideas and we manifest them into the real world. And that was always with science and technology. So let's look up what the word science means. Latin, scio, sciare, to know, knowledge. And it also means to split. And the reason why it means to split is because in order to know something, you have to go to that filtration process, like with the trivium. So to split something, you're splitting much all the bullshit and the inconsistencies, and it's the filtration process. So you're splitting out all the shit that doesn't make sense, that doesn't go along with information, and you're weeding out all this shit that does. So that's what it means to split, because when you're going through that filtration process, it is a splitting process. And then technology, Greek technologia, a discourse or study on an art or the arts. So pretty much anything that man creates is a form of technology. Since we create it in our mind first, and which means to know the mental, how the mental realm, and we manifest it into creation with our hands, with our behavior, with our actions. That's what technology is, So technology is anything that we create from the mental realm onto the manifestations of the physical realm. So you can look at a wheel and carriage. Back in the day, that was technology. A fork, it made a means of eating way more pleasant and easier. That was a piece of technology. And the old fashioned, quilts that people used to construct back in the day, when times were get unfavorable and things would be cold, you would need this piece of technology to maintain yourself and to survive during the winter. Technology goes beyond than just our smartphones and our laptops and our computers. This modern day definition of technology, which technology is a part of man's evolution. anything that we create. Man has always been creating because technology is a part of man. And like I said earlier, we are always creating. We are creative beings. So what exactly are we creating? We have to expand our mind, expand our thoughts, expand our awareness of just looking at technology as these block Saturnian like devices, meaning to keep us enslaved. Everything is a piece of technology. Just comes down to use, proper moral use, and then irregular, immoral abuse. Another factor of the action in hands and deeds is one that seems to be overlooked, and that is the handshake. The handshake was just something that was something meaningful back in the day. It was a sign of integrity. It was a sign of you having a backbone, you know. But it seems in today's day and age, you got these grown men with these limp noodle hands, don't know how to shake nothing. And it's almost like a sign of no integrity, no self-respect, no self-reflection, no form of internal development whatsoever. So what does it mean to shake something? Again, we have an unknown origin believed to be old English, to cause, to move rapidly, to jolt, to agitate, to move back and forth. Now the handshake has become just a mere greeting. And like I say, the handshake was a symbol of respect, of integrity. It was meaning, it was honor, it was principles, it was binding because that was your word back in the day. It was the contract before contracts, it was before we had all these government contracts, your handshake was your word. It meant something. It was meaning. You didn't do business or you didn't shake hands with someone else who didn't have that principles, that didn't have integrity. Now all that's been thrown on the wayside. It was a nice, strong, firm handshake. Move back and forth, that little joke, man. Now you go shake dude's hand and it's like weak. Like, dude, man up, tighten up. It's like have some care. Have some integrity. Dude, when you shake my hand, you're gonna feel a good, that good manliness. But nah, man, dudes these days, for this let shit go, take shit for granted. Oh no, the handshake don't mean anything. Your word means nothing these days. The word. In the beginning was the word, the logos. So what are the proxies here? What are what are the effects that we have seen from these hands in action, these ignorant hands in action? We've seen scientism play out. Dogmatic religion based on who is funding or the authority. One thing that scientism lacks is morality and consciousness because they'll say that, consciousness and morality don't exist. And then, of course, we've all seen the government, was nothing more than a euphemism for slavery. We've seen they have all their hands, all their tentacles in everything. We've seen the order followers, the slave patrol, the house Negroes that are willing to install the state's will upon everyone. And they don't give a fuck what you have to say. They will beat you and steal your money and enslave you all to get their kid a new pair of shoes. We've seen the schooling, the slave indoctrination camps, force feeding, cult mentality, indoctrination into the minds of the youth. You could put the media on here, constantly putting out propaganda. We've seen corporations, just literally blood sucking the planet, blood sucking the individuals that work for the corporation, a dead thing functioning as a living being. You can add your own list to these proxies. But at the end of the day, all of these organized institutions create one thing: and that's trauma. Because trauma is what keeps us internally divided. Trauma from Greek, a wound, hurt, a heavy blow, defeat, a hurt. Proto-Indo-European prefix, tarry or DERH, twisting, drilling, hard rubbing. And then it also has a second connotation, a crossover, pass through, and overcoming. Yes, because it is in healing our trauma. It is in overcoming that trauma, you can start to come back together. You can start to heal yourself. You can start to harmonize, unify. But staying disunited and fragmented internally is what is driving the external division we are seeing play out over the world. We cannot unite and connect with others if we have not united and connected with the truth and ourselves first. We have to come together internally. All of this fighting, all of this chaos that we are seeing manifest on the external plane is all a reflection of the internal chaos that is happening within ourselves, because our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions are out of sync. And our social engineers know this, and they keep playing us off, fighting, using methods of divide and conquer to continue this division. But yet we are the ones who are still falling for it. So what is a stooge? You know, you've seen a couple of images of the Three Stooges. So what is a stooge? A stage assistant, an actor assisting a comedian, a dupe, one who allows themselves to be used for profit. What are the three biggest stooges of all time? Well, the three biggest stooges of all time are our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Because we're still falling victim to the same tactics of manipulation that man has always fell victim to. And sadly for us, the end game or the end of the show may be here very soon. So instead of calling this presentation the mystery of the mind, heart, and hands, then maybe I should have called this presentation the internal contradiction of the mind, heart, and hands. Because just like the Three Stooges, our minds, our hearts, and our hands are constantly fighting with each other. Constantly in chaos, they're constantly slapping, they're constantly hitting, they're constantly kicking each other in a tussle, just like the Three Stooges were. And just like the Three Stooges being used as pawns in this game, orchestrated in the game of slavery. And the final quote, we'll give it to the great Manly P. Hall. When humanity willfully ignores the universal laws which govern its destiny, nature has a devious way of pressing home its lessons. We stand again on the threshold of a great decision. Once more, we have come to a day of reckoning. When humanity willfully ignores the universal laws which govern its destiny, nature has a devious way of pressing home its lesson. We stand again on the threshold of a great decision. Once more, we have come to a day of reckoning. Manly P. Hall. I hope everyone could take some inspiring words from this presentation. I hope that anyone can take what I've had to say and hopefully inspire them to take some action. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I hope that we can really create some change and unity within the world. Once again, my name is Brandon Spencer. Please check out the OneGreatWorkNetwork.com if you want to dive deeper, not only into my material, but all the other great content creators that are on the website. Remember, it is about unity, freedom, and using our voice to be the beacons of light for the truth. Peace out, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.